From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 11, streaming now.
Happening now in Washington, D.C., more lawmakers from both sides are debating ways to remove President Trump from office, and members of his cabinet are stepping away with 12 days left in his presidency. Thanks for joining us here at 11 o'clock. I'm Mark Mullins.
And I'm Amanda Starrentino. No chaos in Washington today, but plenty of developments to keep track of. Education Secretary Betsy DeVos is the second member of President Trump's cabinet to resign today after Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao. The FBI is working to identify rioters who stormed the Capitol, and prosecutors are filing charges. The chief of the U.S. Capitol Police Department has resigned, and we have learned one member of the department has died following yesterday's violence.
Before the chaos at the Capitol building yesterday afternoon, thousands of people traveled from across the country to show their support for President Trump. And that includes a group of more than 100 Hoosiers who wanted to make sure their voices were heard. Tonight, we spoke with three of the Hoosiers who helped organize the group. They say that they tried for weeks to organize meetings with Senators Mike Braun and Todd Young to share their concerns about voter fraud and government spending. They say the process was frustrating and can understand why others are also frustrated with the outcome of the election.
I would describe them as out of touch with how people feel. I don't think they understand how upset people are, how worried people are.
A lot of people look to Trump for support, look for him for hope. We had a voice. We weren't heard. They took the hope away.
The Hoosiers we spoke with say they were not near the groups that wound up breaking into the Capitol. But at one point, Mary Beth Kloss says that she saw a law enforcement officer move a barricade so protesters could move closer to the building. Now, we were speaking with the group when President Trump released a video committing to a peaceful handover to the next administration. Now that the president has conceded, they shared their thoughts on what it will take to move forward as a country.
A new administration will be inaugurated on January 20th. My focus now turns to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition of power. This moment calls for healing and reconciliation.
I think there's a lot of mistrust, and so it's going to be difficult to unite.
I think that if change is going to occur, it's going to have to occur at the grassroots level, and I think that's going to happen.
Our coverage of the riot at the Capitol continues later this half hour with a look at what happens next for Washington and what a prominent Indiana Democrat thinks about the likelihood of impeachment.
While much of the country has been watching the political unrest in Washington, the U.S. is setting new coronavirus records, including the number of people hospitalized. Here in Indiana, that number is increasing again after a slight decrease over the holidays. On Wednesday, more than 2,800 people were in the hospital with COVID. 593 of those were in the ICU, according to the State Department of Health. It has been more than a month since Indiana hit its record for COVID hospitalizations, and healthcare workers are still stretched thin. Tonight, an IU Health respiratory therapist is sharing the emotional toll the pandemic has taken on her since she began the pandemic working in the COVID unit.
I think the most challenging part about it was the emotional aspect of just being there for the patients. And that was the hardest part because they have no family members here. They can't talk to anybody. I mean, even their last breath before they're put on a breathing machine is tell my family I love them. And that's like, it kind of shakes me a little bit, but we've seen that so many times. You know, you never want your patients, that's not the end goal is for them, to pass away. If my patient declines and they don't become better, I mean, it's exhausting because you sweat in those rooms for hours, you're trying everything you can possible to save these patients, and the outcome, it just isn't fair sometimes. And I actually wear this bracelet that says Overcome, which I look at almost daily, and it really does give me strength to go on, every hour of my shift, that we, as a team, can overcome this virus. We are stronger than this virus.
According to the Regent Street Institute, health department data shows Indiana's rate of hospitalizations and positive COVID cases are increasing. Today, officials announced 7,300 new positive cases and 81 additional deaths. Each night, we bring to you the latest number of cases and deaths from the state health department, but they're not numbers, they're people. And sadly, we've lost thousands of people in our state to this horrible virus. We are sharing the stories of families who have lost loved ones. And tonight in our Faces of COVID, WRTV's Cornelius Hawker shares the story of a healthcare worker whose dedication and love to her family is something they say knew no bounds. They miss her and her love every day.
Why do you have to comb your hair?
Whether it was little moments like this with her grandson or big moments like this. Holding the camera at her daughter's gender reveal party, Kendra Irons' family was the most important thing in her life.
If you knew her, you knew she was either talking about work or at work, or she was bragging about her girls. And like my sisters play volleyball, so she was always talking about volleyball this and volleyball that, or the grandkids this.
Angel Spencer is Kendra's oldest. Born when her mom was 16, the two, in a way, grew up together. Not only was she able to see her mom find a loving husband and having her two younger sisters, but she also got to see her mom progress in the career she loved, nursing.
She did burn, ER. Eventually, she ended up making it to house supervisor, which is like she coordinated all of the nursing, everything for the hospital.
Kendra eventually became a nurse practitioner and started working for home health, doing in-home visits. Unfortunately, that's where her family thinks she contracted the virus, despite taking all the recommended precautions in public and at work.
At work, she wore like the face shield and the whole like hazmat suit basically type of thing. So it's like, of all people that would have gotten it, it's like, you got it?
And whenever you hear people say, it's only like less than 1% of people dying from it, how does that make you feel?
It infuriates me. I actually work at a restaurant, and even just when people refuse to wear masks, like, we're gonna take it off in 5 seconds. Like, yeah, but that 5 seconds that you're walking through the restaurant could potentially save someone's life. Like, my mom was young. There was no good reason for her to pass away.
Now, at 25, Angel is helping take care of her younger sisters, splitting their time between their dads and her house. All of them trying to figure out this thing called life without their mom, taken from them because of COVID-19.
I think mainly that's just my kind of life goal, is just keep sharing her story. Like, everything that she was, I want to try to like push out to the world.
Working for you, Cornelius Hawker, WRTV.
Kendra Irons died on December 1st. She was just 41 years old. She leaves behind a husband of more than 16 years, along with 4 kids, 3 grandkids, and 2 more grandchildren arriving in February.
And another family is mourning the loss of a mother to COVID-19. Tracy Mullis was 45 years old. Her husband, Jeff, contracted COVID at work in March. They tried to stay separate, but it was too late. Tracy had a condition that impacted her lungs. She was hospitalized the day after Easter and spent 6 weeks on a ventilator. Jeff was able to hold Tracy's hand as she passed.
Just feel it. And I've always told everybody we have soulmates. She was telling me she was going to be okay.
Tracy is remembered as being a loving mother to their 2 daughters. And WRTV needs your help to keep alive the memories of those lost to COVID. We are asking for your help to put names to faces into the numbers. If you've lost someone close to you, connect with us. You can reach us at facesofcovid@WRTV.com.
Hope is on the horizon as COVID-19 vaccines become available to more Hoosiers. 128,000 people have gotten at least 1 dose of the vaccine so far in Indiana. And beginning tomorrow morning, people over 80 can start signing up to get vaccinated. Seniors 80 and older can call 211 or visit ourshot.in.gov to make a vaccine appointment. The shots are free to eligible populations administered through the state. That means you will not be able to make an appointment through your primary care doctor. You can find more information about getting vaccinated right now at WRTV.com. It's one of the biggest sporting events of the year, March Madness, the NCAA tournament, and the whole thing is happening in Indiana. How will fans watch the games, and how will businesses safely get in on the action? The answers from Indy's mayor coming up.
And I'm tracking snow down along the Ohio River, even some flurries up toward Indianapolis. What happens with this and what happens for your weekend coming up?
Fresh for everyone.
Welcome back. Central Indiana is getting a major chance to rebound from some of the impacts of the pandemic. Preparations are underway for the NCAA men's basketball tournament taking place in arenas across the state. But we don't know if fans will be able to attend the games. Today, Indy Mayor Joe Hogsett said it's too soon for the health department to make that call when it comes to games played in Marion County. He says any individual or business looking forward to hosting or watching the games in person should make sure now that they are following all health guidelines.
Our behavior today determines our public health environment tomorrow. So the steps that we collectively take today will help determine the safest public health environment possible when the tournament begins in March.
Mayor Hogsett and Dr. Virginia Kane also provided updates on vaccine distribution today as the state opens up availability for those over 80. Again, you can find all that information on the WRTV app.
One big question you or your family may have is what happens next after the Capitol riots. With less than 2 weeks until Biden's inauguration, there is a push to invoke the 25th Amendment. And as Joe St. George shows us, the possibility for more unity in Congress.
The country is still reeling from what we all saw at the U.S. Capitol Wednesday. Insurrection, rioting. If you're wondering what happens next, well, you aren't alone. One big question, what about the upcoming inauguration? Around the Capitol near the inaugural platform, a new large fence is being constructed the day after the Capitol was under siege. Assigned security for the inauguration is being reconfigured. National Guardsmen literally sitting on buses waiting for orders. For Kevin, in town from New Jersey, he's thinking what many are wondering. Why wasn't this up before?
I think it's pretty incredible the fences are going up now. I think that's what we talked about last night, that I think they knew this was going to happen.
Another question is what happens next with President Trump? He only has a few days left in office, but Facebook has blocked his account. A number of top staffers have resigned, and there are now reports the 25th Amendment could be potentially invoked. That process requires a majority of Trump's cabinet, as well as the vice president, to tell Congress he's unfit for office, taking away his powers. Presidential scholar Dr. John White of Catholic University explains why this process exists.
And the reason the 25th Amendment came about was that after the Kennedy assassination, there had been real concerns about what if President Kennedy had lived for a time.
And finally, could a spirit of unity potentially sweep Congress, resulting in new laws impacting your family? The answer really depends who you ask.
I think there's a lot of anger. I mean, people react in certain ways. People are pushed to the edge now, so.
Kevin, who did not participate in the riots at the Capitol but is a Trump supporter, says this country is bitterly divided. Professor White, though, thinks Republicans may want to join Democrats in the coming months to pass bipartisan ideas like stimulus checks and economic aid.
I think that there is an opportunity. The lawmakers themselves who had to take cover realized that this was an inflection point.
The next few hours, the next few days, no doubt will be critical in determining what's next for our country. In Washington, I'm Joe St. George.
Indiana Representative Andre Carson was in the Capitol building yesterday afternoon when rioters broke in. Carson, a Democrat, puts blame on the president for what happened yesterday. Carson has joined calls for impeachment, but admits there most likely will not be enough time for that process to play out.
It's never too late to do the right thing, I suppose, but it has been clear for a very long time that he is unfit for office. The difficulty is that we're going to recess for about a week and a half, and when we return, it'll be time to swear in Joe Biden. So these attempts have symbolic value, but honestly, after we get past recess, he'll be gone anyway.
We're also hearing from one of Indiana's top Republicans, Governor Holcomb. Our Rafael Sanchez asked the governor what he believes is next for the man who previously held his seat, soon to be former Vice President Mike Pence, after everything that unfolded this week.
his future's wide open, in my opinion. I've not talked to him about his future, but he'll have multiple options. And I never second guessed his loyalty to the Constitution, and he proved it again yesterday.
And you can hear more from our conversations with Governor Holcomb and Representative Carson about what happened yesterday right now at WRTV.com. Now over to Kevin.
And Mark, let's kind of show off here our coldest and warmest temperature within the 7-day forecast. Nothing too Arctic, but down to 22, but as warm as 45. We'll put a day of the week with those numbers in a second. We're stuck in the low to mid 30s now. Clouds around, some flurries once you get south of Interstate 70. Just talked to Kyle Mounts a couple minutes ago. On the south side, he had a few flurries that have since disappeared once again. All of this from the system that's well to the south. We're on the very northern fringe of that. As we zoom in closer, best chance for accumulating snow in the state will be along Interstate 64. Bedford, Seymour, south, you may see a dusting of snow, but a half inch or so as you get toward Interstate 64. Let's play this out overnight, and you can see everything kind of rotate into the state from the southeast as it rotates around that area of low pressure. Next job will be to break up some cloud cover. Temperatures around 30 in the morning, stay in the lower 30s through the day. We may see a few holes in the cloud cover during the afternoon hours tomorrow. It's the north wind that will make it feel colder. You need to dress in some layers as it'll feel more like 20. And of course, if you don't have a boost with sunshine, then that doesn't help. As far as the temperatures in the afternoon, there's your range, 31 to about 35. That's our average this time of year. Tomorrow morning, any snow along the Ohio River starts to move off to the east as the storm system goes to the mid-Atlantic and the Carolinas. Sets the stage for us to start to break up the cloud cover. Your weekend forecast, 34, partly sunny. By the way, the Colts in Buffalo over the weekend should be partly cloudy and temperatures in the 30s there. So it doesn't look like weather is going to be a big factor in the ball game. Temperatures start in the 20s because of a few breaks in the cloud cover. We'll start a little colder Saturday morning. Temperatures in the afternoon in the mid 30s. Want to show you what we'll watch Monday night and Tuesday. All indications are same thing. We'll have a southern system. We may be on the very northern edge of that. But right now, we'll keep the forecast dry and fine-tune it from there. 37, your Monday high, just a little bit warmer Tuesday, then noticeably warmer. By the time we get to Wednesday and Thursday, we're back into the low 40s. Something to look forward to there. Amanda?
Definitely. Thanks, Kevin. The Rebound Indiana is keeping track of the way students and their families are working to get through the pandemic while moving forward with their education. Students trying to register for college admission tests are dealing with crashing websites and last-minute shutdowns. Usher Qureshi shows us parents and students are going to extreme lengths to take their exams.
Sitting down to take a standardized test can be stressful, but add to that the uncertainty of whether or not you'll be able to take the exam until the night before takes it to another level.
Literally up until the day before her scheduled test, they still hadn't slotted her.
Ann Mordine's 17-year-old daughter Nina registered on time and had studied for months for the ACT, but when her school closed, she had to go to an alternate examination location. But her testing seat couldn't be guaranteed.
I couldn't reach them. I probably spent 20 hours dialing back, and then once you would get through to somebody, it was the wrong person, so you'd have to start all over again.
Gil Gabori is the founder and CEO of The House, a teen tutoring program that provides test prep for the ACT and SAT. He says stories like that have been common during the pandemic.
What we saw were schools, which tend to be the testing sites, were closing their centers. So kids can only register for one location. It's a little bit like throwing at a dartboard and deciding where you want it to land.
On its website, the College Board warns that many locations will have reduced capacity because of social distancing guidelines. Unfortunately, we expect many test centers to encounter full or partial closures. And while both SAT administrators at the College Board and ACT testing provide accommodations for students with disabilities, getting those accommodations during the pandemic, says Gilbori, has become increasingly difficult.
They were diagnosed with special education needs and were given accommodations in school, all part of the Americans with Disabilities Act. These are the rights they get to level the playing field.
To get their daughter's accommodation, the Mordines had to reschedule her test and travel out of state.
My husband and she drove up the night before, spent a night in the hotel, and went and took the test. Added expense, added effort. Not everyone can do that.
Despite many colleges and universities waiving the standardized testing requirement for admission, many remain skeptical that the absence of a score won't play a role in a school's decision. That means increased demand with fewer testing slots.
Unless the school says we're not looking at any test scores other than your transcripts and whatever portfolio material, that you kind of have to do it because the playing field isn't leveled for everybody.
ACT and SAT's next testing dates are scheduled for February and March, respectively. Gilbori says rather than checking with the national organizations, it's best to reach out to your local testing location.
It's just too much capacity for their staff to deal with. So my advice is, if you're concerned about it, follow the trend, talk to your school.
I'm Usher Qureshi reporting.
A back-and-forth battle for IU tonight up in Wisconsin. The Hoosiers had to play more than 40 minutes. Brad's got highlights and reaction from the Hoosiers next on the news at 11.
First.com.
Nearly 23 years had passed since IU's last win at Wisconsin. A sluggish first half made it look like that might continue, but freshman Anthony Leal came off the bench to knock down a couple of threes before the break. IU was down just 5 at halftime. In the second half, Trace Jackson-Davis started to get in a groove, goes strong on the drive, the poster jam and the foul. Trace dominated that end for the middle part of the half. Scores off the assist from Rob Finnessy, another impressive stat line, 23 points and 12 rebounds. Hoosiers put together a 14-2 run to take the lead. They needed some clutch shots late, though. Finnessy hit a 3 to retake the lead by 2. IU 40% behind the arc on the night. Tie game with a minute to go. Jackson-Davis with a big assist of his own. Finds Jerome Hunter in the middle. Big dunk put Indiana up by 2. Wisconsin hit one at the other end to tie it, so some bonus basketball in Madison. 30 seconds to go in OT. Durham on the drive. 2 of his 15 points put Indiana back in front. They would go to a second overtime where the Badgers hit the big shots there. Tyler Wall back-to-back threes that ultimately made the difference. 80-73 the final margin. Wisconsin's 18th straight home win against IU.
We're going to have to continue to ride with guys during the game that are doing a good job. But I think just in general, a big key to this season, and has been all season long, is overall contributions and consistency, and we're getting better consistency right now for more guys.
Indiana plays at Nebraska on Sunday. Brad Brown, WRTV Sports.
Payments, no interest for 12 months.
Okay, a couple snow flurries in the southern portion of the state. Down along the Ohio River is where they may have some very light accumulations, maybe up to a half an inch. Bedford and Seymour, you're on the edge of some light snow at this hour. Temperatures tomorrow, no different than the last couple of days. 34, some sun breaks out in the afternoon. And then we think about the weekend. Mark?
I think that sounds great. The weekend almost here. Thanks for joining us here on WRTV News at 11. GMI heads your way at 4:30. Have a great night.